Hey everybody, Matt Johnston here. This is the last in our series of videos dealing with the interactive process and job accommodations under the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the Americans with Disabilities Act, a few other laws that are implied there or implicated there, and particularly as it relates to COVID-19 and requests for accommodations that may come as a result of COVID-19 concerns. So one of the most difficult things of any interactive process is collecting potential accommodations. It requires a lot of imagination, and sometimes we're not always the most imaginative, particularly when, as an employer, you're concerned about, is it going to cost me too much money? Is it going to be a pain? Am I going to have people complaining about how come that person gets that and I don't get this? And all of these sorts of things that happen. So there's a couple of things to first consider. One is maybe look at some outside resources. One of my favorite resources when dealing with accommodations is askjan.org. Ask, ASKJAN.org. That is the Job Accommodation Network. It is a nonprofit organization that has done some fantastic work about the interactive process, about the Americans with Disabilities Act, and more importantly, they have collected some fantastic ideas that you can use, maybe modify or adopt wholesale as an accommodation for employees, including information about documenting, how you go about implementing, all of those sorts of things. askjan.org, a fantastic, great resource for you to consider. The other thing to consider is maybe asking some of your management team. I've often talked about the management team. These are the folks who are generally outside your business, there to help you navigate difficult questions. And your management team might include your lawyer. I know that's self-serving, but it is what it is. An accountant, a banker, a business insurance broker, mentors, marketing teams, things like that. Those folks may have exposure to other options that may give you a different viewpoint. So let's say you need somebody who needs to work from home as part of their accommodation, but you need to have some technology help. Well, somebody who's in business IT may be able to give you some pointers and some assistance in setting that up. So collecting accommodations is one thing that is going to require a fair amount of imagination, of thinking outside the box. And so maybe instead of being trapped in your box, you need to step outside of it and look for people who might be able to give you some sort of ideas. The last thing that I want to say about the interactive process is it requires some documentation. At each step of the process, you should be documenting, for example, information from the employee about their request. Information as little as possible, but information necessary for the medical implications. All that needs to be documented. Accommodations that are discussed needs to be documented. Accommodations that are rejected may need some additional commentary and documentation. And finally, all of these things need to be part and parcel of an ongoing dialogue with your employee. Simply because you implement an accommodation doesn't mean you can't revisit it, doesn't mean it can't be taken away later if, for example, the need for the accommodation has evaporated. But having the documentation in place and following a checklist, in following and doing the follow-up, rather, you need to constantly document what's going on. Okay? I hope that if you have any questions about the interactive process, if you're worried about what you should do, if you would like some guidance, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're happy to schedule consultations in order to discuss the interactive process. As I said before, the Americans with Disability Act applies by statute to employers with 15 or more employees. But for those with 14 or fewer employees, it's not a bad process to have in place. In the meantime, I hope everybody is staying safe, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.